Thank you all for coming here today. This is a very important event. Suicide is at an epidemic stage in our country, and last week's high-profile deaths only serve to illustrate the magnitude of the problem. In Wyoming, it's particularly acute. Our state has one of the highest suicide rates in the country. 1 in 6 Wyoming teenagers has considered suicide in the last year. 1 in 12 attempted suicide in the last year. There's a completed suicide in Wyoming on average every 3 days. Last year during this campaign, Taco John's raised $9,600 towards suicide education and prevention. This year I challenged our restaurants to top that number. I asked our general managers to make this a top priority and beat last year's total. And I'm thrilled to say that our general managers rose to the challenge and nearly doubled last year's total. They raised more than $17,000 towards suicide education and prevention. I'd specifically like to thank Diana Tafoya from our store on Pershing Boulevard, which raised more than $3,700. And today's event wouldn't be possible without our partners in this promotion, Jonah Bank. My friend Greg Jones, the Executive Vice President of Jonah Bank, will now make some remarks.
Thank you, Jim. My name is Greg Jones with Jonah Bank, and I wish I could have gone first because my comments mimic pretty much what Jim said. Jonah Bank is extremely proud to be a participant in this year's suicide prevention campaign. It is well known that Wyoming has one of the highest suicide rates in the entire nation, and that fact alone is reason enough to support efforts to bring discussion about suicide out of the shadows and into the public eye.
Next we have Rihanna Brand, who represents Grace for Two Brothers.
Thank you so much for coming today. Thank you so much, Jonah Bank, Taco John's, all of the employees that work for these wonderful organizations for rising to the occasion to face a topic that is usually faced in fear, but having a conversation with people, showing the resources, and providing funding for suicide prevention efforts throughout the state. Grace for Two Brothers is one recipient, one organization. We are a nonprofit dedicated to suicide prevention through awareness and education, as well as providing support to survivors of suicide loss. But whatever was raised in other counties are staying in other counties. We have up there in the Wind River area, the Northern Arapaho Suicide Prevention Program. This funding will go to their horse culture program. Suicide prevention looks different all throughout Wyoming, and we haven't had the greatest funding, but with our numbers sitting at number 3 for suicide rates per capita in the U.S., usually in the top 5, having support from large organizations like Jonah Bank and Taco John's, it goes far beyond gratitude. Thank you so much to the community members that have donated and are bringing this topic up in conversation and not being afraid to have this conversation with those that may be struggling. Our key point is to get education and awareness out there, and with Taco John's and Jonah Bank's efforts, we've been able to do that throughout the entire state of Wyoming. So thank you so much, and thank you to the community members that have been donating. Continue to have this conversation. Don't forget your local resources and where those are, and please never forget to reach out if you are struggling.
Up next, Mayor Orr will make some remarks.
Thank you very much, Jim. Thank you to Taco John's and Jonah Bank, not only as the mayor of Cheyenne, but I know that I speak probably for all of the mayors in the state of Wyoming. Your statewide presence, as Rihanna mentioned, really does make a difference. When we're asked, when tragedies do happen, what can the city do? There's very little that the city can do other than reach out to organizations such as Grace for Two Brothers, our mental health and counseling centers. We're fortunate in Cheyenne to have youth alternatives, but without funding from the public and the private sector, thank you so much. It truly takes a partnership to talk about and to handle this very important and crisis situation that we are in. And again, it's been said, I don't think that there's probably anyone here in the room today whose life has not been affected or touched by suicide. And thank you so much for all of the attention that that you all have given and the dollars that you've donated.
Thank you. And I think it's very important that we be sure that we thank all of the customers of Jonah Bank, as well as Taco John's, who are the real heroes that raise this money. So now it's time for the formal check presentation. Brianna, you've done a wonderful job spearheading this, and we're happy to present you this check of just over $22,000 this year.
Thank you so much, you guys. This is incredible.